Hello everybody, welcome back to Creating Hanley. I am Kimberly at Creating Hanley, and in today's episode, today's tutorial, oops, this one's upside down. I'm going to do a third method for creating a square in a square. Now remember, you can put the square in this way, or you can turn it on point and have your square this way. So this was the first method. So that was tutorial number 1, the first method, where we did the ratio of 1, so I'll just quickly recap, 1:1 fabric. And you put right sides together, created a little ravioli pouch, sewed all the way around, popped open the center by putting your seam allowance in here, or not seam allowance, seam ripper, pop that in there, and then cut along the diagonal, iron those open, and then you have your square in a square. That's quick and dirty, no waste, same ratio of fabric. The one problem with this is you will lose your points on this one, okay? So you will lose your points because there is 0 seam allowance. You can see if I quote trim this back, you see there's 0 seam allowance right there. So that will become flattened. So that is a little bit problematic with the first method. Although that was easy, no waste, you lose your points. So if you want better points, watch video number 2 on how I did this 6.5 inch square. I started with a 4.5 inch, and then watch the video to see what size this is and see how the method that I used to put this together. So that was method number 2. This used 2 background pieces. This used 1, this used 2. This method today, this third method, I'm going to show you how to do only 2 pieces of fabric. So let's look down here. So now I have my same 4.5 inch middle square, my same fussy cut 4.5 inch. And now I took a 5.5 inch square, 5.5 inch, and now I cut that diagonal to diagonal. And so we're going to use this one piece. So we're going to attach these to here using the same method that we used in number 2. Okay, so that means I have to fold this fabric, find the center line, just finger press. Make sure your fabric is flat. So you have pre-pressed all this. If you are starching, pre-starch it. Make sure it's dry. If you're washing it, dry it. Make sure everything is pressed out, flat, ready to go. Now, this creates, the reason I do that is because it creates, one, it creates a center, but also it creates a, maybe you can see that, a fold line in which to follow. So I know my middle or halfway mark is right there. I know my halfway mark is right there. So that will help with your alignment. Okay? Now, you're going to do the same thing here. Take this, pinch it long side together, and make sure you line up those points, and then you line up the point here. Okay? And then fold that. So now you've created a crease. Now you know where the center is here, and you know where the center is here. So you're going to match those up. So I'm going to start with the top. So as you can see it says happy birthday. The birthday cake is going up. So this is directional fabric. Now again, if you have directional fabric, you want to make sure that you align your direction of the fabric whatever way you want it to go, okay? I don't. This is not directional fabric, so I'm just going to pop this on here. I line up using the same method in video number 2. Now, because this square was 1 inch larger than this one, I have overhang on here. You can see I have overhang. And that is perfect to allow a little bit of extra seam allowance at the end. So I line up the center, and I can see this fold is in the same line as that fold. So I am good to go. I'm just going to pop in a pin to hold place right here. And I'm going to do the same with this one. And line up the long edge with the fold. And I'm going to line up the fold here so I know exactly the overhang should be an equal amount of overhang. Now I'm not going to pin this one because I'm just going to take this straight to the machine and start sewing. I'm using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. If you want to, you can use a leader. And then take it to the other side. I'm not going to use a leader here. I'm just going to place this on. We're good. Okay. Now, take this over to your press mat. Can you guys see that? Just a hot iron. I'm not using any steam. Gently fold that back. Okay, so you can see here, I just gently fold this open. So I set my seam, right? Set the seam, and then just gently fold that back, and you can finger press it. And if that's all you want to do, finger press it, and then add your next one. Fantastic. But I'm going to dry heat this so it lays a little bit more flat. Okay, now, if you have pre-folded, that's great. You can pre-fold all of them. Now make sure these are open. You want these points out. You don't want to leave it like this and then place these on. That's going to ruin your square. So make sure these are open. That's why I like mine flat, and I don't have to cut off these little points yet. I'm just going to leave them and then line up that middle fold line on both sides. You're going to have this overhang, which is perfect. Take it to the machine, do your 1/4 inch seam allowance, and start at the edge, and then take it all the way off to the other edge. Just take it straight off, and then, so you have it sewn like that, edge to edge, and then you can flip that open if you like, gently finger press, right, and then you take your last piece. So you want to place opposites together. Opposite and opposite. Okay, here we go. So, pretty sides together, face down onto the one that's face up. Line up your point. Line up the edge right there so the point goes straight across. And then start off the fabric, sew your 1/4 inch seam allowance, take it all the way to the edge, sew straight off, and gently finger press that open. Do your hot iron, and just let it press. You don't need to swirl that iron around, just let it press hot. And voila, there you go. Now there's a little less seam allowance, or I should say a little less fabric allowance. So you can see on this one, this is trimmed to 6.5 inches. And watch this video so that you understand what I'm talking about, how big I made this, how big I cut this square, and how I attached it to here. It's pretty much the exact same method as I use today for this one. But you can see there's, even with this trim, there's a lot more fabric up here than here. Okay, so then trim this up, and if I trim it, this will come to, so right now it is about 6.25 inches untrimmed, and it needs trimmed. So let me see if I can show this on camera here. This is about 6.25 inches untrimmed, like I said, about. Okay, so when you trim it up, this will probably be 6.25 inches exactly. Maybe even, you can maybe take it down to 6 inches. But here's the thing. You want to leave, here, let me get my little measuring gauge. You want to leave at least a 1/4 inch between this point and the edge. Okay, so see how there's just enough and just maybe a little bit extra so I can trim it up. Now when I put that 1/4 inch into my project, you can see that point is not going to be lost. It is just going to be right under, and let me show you, it's just going to be right under. Do you see how the point is not lost, but it's right under that fabric? Okay, so that's how this one is going to turn out. So this is method number 3. This is method number 2. Gives you a lot more, at least in my tutorial series. It's not considered that in general public, but in my tutorial series, this is the way I filmed the videos. So this is method number 2 for the square-in-a-square, and this is now method number 3 for square-in-a-square. Okay? All right, you guys. I'm sure I'll get a lot more comments. Let me know what you think about these two. And happy creating. Bye for now.